What's the most time-efficient way to actually learn to speak a language? Not understand it a little, not kind of get it. I mean, to open your mouth and speak well, confidently, without having to stop and think for a while about grammar. This is a question I get a lot from people who want to improve as fast as possible. People who are disciplined and hardworking, willing to do whatever it takes to get results. And my answer is always the same. And 99% of language learners will never do this because it's frustrating. It exhausts your brain. It forces you to face the truth. You don't actually know the language, not until you can produce it. And that is the difference between people who study languages or pretend to learn with immersion and people who actually become fluent. So listen very carefully, because this exercise is the biggest game changer in language learning. And no, it's not immersion with YouTube videos or watching Netflix for 10,000 hours. None of that nonsense. This is hard work. I'm talking about active recall. This is what neuroscientists will tell you to do if you ask them about the most efficient way to learn anything. This is how world-class performers train the brain. And it's the single most powerful thing you can do for language learning. And it's extremely simple. Comprehensible input, when you just read or listen to the language and you understand most of it, helps you maintain and slowly improve your knowledge. But it usually only helps with understanding, with one exception I'll talk about later. But for the most part, input does not build speaking skills. You do not learn to speak by listening. You learn how to speak by speaking. And this is where most people think that they should simply talk to native speakers. Big mistake. Talking to native speakers is great. You should do it as much as possible. But it's got a lot of shortcomings. Mostly that you don't get feedback most of the time, you don't get corrected, and also that you often don't have the chance to practice speaking to native speakers every time you want, because it requires you having access to another person. So the solution is retrieval practice. Translation into the target language with feedback. You make as many mistakes as possible, and you always look at the feedback. By making as many mistakes as possible, translating into the language, and then looking at the feedback, you can learn from your mistakes and you can fix them without making all those mistakes in front of people. If you're afraid of making mistakes in front of people, if you are afraid of speaking, this exercise is for you. You do a lot of reps, you make a lot of mistakes, you try again, you look at the feedback, you try again, you make much fewer mistakes, you look at the feedback again, you try again, and eventually you'll make basically no mistakes at all. It's brutal, it's frustrating, it's hard work, but it's extremely effective. Here's how it works exactly. You take a list of full sentences in your target language, ideally sentences you've already read before, and sentences that are useful, so preferably your own sentences from your language islands, sentences that actually matter to you in real life. You review them a few times and then you start translating from your native language into the target language, out loud. No reading, no cheating. You simply try to translate those sentences into the target language. You will fail constantly because this exercise is very difficult. You will forget words you literally saw 30 seconds earlier. Perfect. That's the whole point. You see your weaknesses in real time. Instant feedback. It's the brutal truth. You either know it or you don't. If you don't know the words, you'll see immediately that you don't know the words. If your grammar is terrible and you make lots of mistakes, you will see immediately that your grammar is terrible and that you make a lot of mistakes. And the very moment you realize you made a mistake, when you check the correct sentence, you can repeat it aloud correctly. So you're correcting yourself on the spot. And this is where the brain rewiring is happening. Not when you are passively listening and absorbing the language through immersion and all of that. This is how you actually learn. This is adaptation under pressure. And why does this exercise work so well? Why is it so powerful? Because it trains 3 different skills at the same time, at maximum intensity. Number 1 is fluency. How fast you can retrieve the information from your mind. It's one thing if you're able to recognize the words and the sentences, but being able to retrieve that information, being able to remember it fast enough, and then deliver it convincingly in real time, that's very different. That's a skill you need to practice. That's what real fluency is, right? Being able to remember what you need to say fast enough and well enough. So with this exercise, you develop your fluency, your ability to think faster, but you also develop your ability to think better in the language. Accuracy, precision, good grammar, good structure. Making lots of mistakes and getting corrected constantly will help you be much more accurate when you speak. And you're also building muscle memory. You're physically building speaking reflex. You're not just acquiring knowledge, you are practicing. Because speaking a language is a physical skill. If you only listen to the language, or you only read, or you do grammar exercises, you will understand more and more, but you will still freeze when it's time to speak. But this exercise will change that, because this is retrieval training. This is the most realistic exercise you can do to train your conversation skills. And let me be extremely clear. You can do this from day one. Even as a beginner, you review the sentences once and you immediately try to reproduce them. You will fail, of course. Maybe you feel stupid or frustrated. Perfect. Do it again. The second round, you'll remember a lot more of them. The third round, you'll remember even more. With each round, you'll notice the progress. You'll make much fewer mistakes. So this exercise, even if it's hard and even if it's difficult to get going, once you get going, it can be addictive because you can track your progress in real time. Now, here's where it gets even better. If you combine this exercise, active recall, with shadowing, listening and repeating entire sentences, your speaking skills will skyrocket, because listening and repeating massive amounts of complete sentences will massively improve your fluency and your pronunciation, and active recall will improve your ability to remember those sentences when you need them. These two exercises are the perfect combination. One trains your mouth and the other one trains your brain. You stack both and language fluency becomes inevitable. If you do this daily for a week, you'll start noticing results. And if you do this daily for a month, people around you will start noticing because you'll sound way better. Now, most people will never do this because most people are lazy. That's the sad truth. They want magic apps, they want gamified, they want effortless, the lazy way, all of that. Passive learning, no effort. They want results without work. And that is why they are getting the results they are getting. Most of them will never even become conversational in the language. But if you are the kind of person who actually wants results and you're willing to work hard, this is what you need to do. You take full sentences, real sentences, your language islands, and you review them, you listen to them, and you start translating into the target language, looking at the mistakes and trying again and again until you can do it easily with no mistakes. That is real fluency training. Oh, and earlier I talked about an exception to the rule with comprehensible input. There is, in fact, one type of comprehensible input that will help your speaking skills. I'm talking about repetitive reading or listening to the same lines over and over again with spaced repetition. This will help you improve your speaking skills, because after dozens of reviews, listening to the same lines over and over again, you'll know them so well that you'll be able to deliver them fluently with confidence and decent pronunciation. This is what I do with my language islands. You have to learn your lines like an actor. Lots and lots of repetition with all the sentences you want to be able to say. But everything else, it's a waste of time.